Okay, guys, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council Workshop of January 29, 2018 to order. Open a workshop to discuss and consider the following. Proposed wind energy conversion system ordinance submitted by the Hopkinton Conservation Commission. Harvey, you want to preface the meeting or the workshop with a few words or whatever?
Okay, so John has got a little bit of presentation and give us up here, might give you some visuals. I think that would be helpful. And so I think that would be a place to start, and then we can ask questions, or I can come up and talk about a few more things. But I have to think that we want to just kind of march through this reasonably fast, I think.
Huh?
Can we turn off a couple of lights?
Let's see,
Over
it's,
there, just one second. The other one. There you go. That's fine.
Hi.
Hello.
excuse me.
Yeah, sorry. Well, I guess it's on me. So, wind. I guess it's, the best way to start it off is to say is, we know that the state's committed to green energy. The governor is quoting no uncertain terms that she wants to quadruple the current energy generation that we have now. So it's going to come via solar, it's going to come via wind. And so we just basically need to choose how we want it to happen to us.
John, where's this come from? Where does all this information come from?
It comes from various sources. So the government comes from the energy.ri.gov website. I'll cite sources as we go along.
Please do.
Sure. So the governor wants 1,000 megawatts of electricity generated in the state of Rhode Island. Again, according to energy.ri.gov, and we currently generate around 230. Most of it's from onshore wind, as a matter of fact. Portsmouth and Coventry do a lot of it. And a little bit from the offshore wind farm in Block Island, as well as a little bit of solar. And so it's probably a good idea that Hopkins would be on board with the state's idea to kind of share the commitment to provide green energy. This comes from KeepRhodeIslandBeautiful.com. They're the anti-Coralville movement. And what they're showing here is that Rhode Island has high CO2 emissions. And they're pointing out that even though Massachusetts has a GDP that's 6 or 7 times higher than ours, we still put out more carbon dioxide. I will preface this by, I'll footnote this one by saying, this is what that activist group says. The Federal Energy Administration put out a report the other day that says that conflicts with these numbers, at least, but that only measures carbon dioxide in terms of energy generation. So, yeah.
Going down to one statement, you said Portsmouth and Coventry produce most of the electricity, and then you mentioned with wind, and then you said also the offshore wind. How many windmills are in Coventry and Portsmouth, and how many are offshore?
There are 10 in Coventry and West Greenwich. There are 1 or 2 in Portsmouth. I know there's one there's a school in an Abbey. Portsmouth Abbey. I want to say there's a second one there, but I'm not entirely certain. I know that there are 3 in Providence. As far as which ones contribute more than others,
Aren't there some in Block Island?
Yeah, how many are
I
in
think
the
there are
offshore?
several offshore.
they're offshore.
Five?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was talking about onshore. There are 5 offshore.
Okay, thank
Still
you.
belongs to us.
Sure.
Are they all around the same size, or you don't know?
The offshore are larger.
Do you know what they are larger, what that is? Is it like 600 or 5? 600 feet?
600 feet, yeah, that I don't know. The ones onshore, the ones in Coventry, for example, and I have photos of them later on, are 400 foot high, 1.5 megawatt variety. So this is from the Rhode Island energy.ri.gov website. And this is our state's clean energy portfolio, and so this is where I was talking about those numbers. So there's 30 megawatts of offshore wind. That's the Block Island wind farm. 11 megawatts of hydroelectricity, 100 megawatts of onshore wind. So it's happening all around us. I don't know where all the windmills are, I just know where the roots of them are. And 50 megawatts of solar. So I imagine solar is going to increase with all the projects that get approved once they're built. And the goal is by 2020, so that's 2 years out. So it's not something that's going to happen in the next 10 years, it's going to happen in the next 2 years. So it's right around the corner. And to give you a sense of what that Black Island wind farm looks like, there it is. It's the first offshore wind farm in the United States. It generates 30 megawatts of power. And according to the Black Island Chamber of Commerce, it is boosting tourism just by virtue of being there. Yeah, so there's a little closer. I think this is, my guess is this is at the lighthouse. The Black Island Ferry will charge $30 per person, and you can do a tour of the wind farm. So it's, there's a market to visit it, oddly enough. And URI began a study last year. It's a 2-year study, and they're going to look at the effect of wind energy on tourism. So we'll know in a year what that amounts to. But anecdotally, it's on the rise. Yeah.
Are they also doing a study on the fish and the fish under the sea around where the windmills are?
I don't know.
I think they are.
Yes.
Migratory birds, I'm pretty sure. I don't know about fish.
They did fish. There were 2
Yeah.
guys who did fish.
Because it sets up like an atoll, and that's when the fish start gathering, and then the fishermen start gathering there as well.
No, I would imagine if this not study, if not this study, someone else is doing a similar study. It's a lot of opportunity for researchers and universities. Further to the state's plan, this came from a Rhode Island price study. This is national grid data, and this is from the Office of Energy Resources, right? Office of Energy, OER, whatever they are. And what they're getting at here is that the cost of electricity supply and transmission have been increasing, and they represent the largest portion of our electricity bills. I'm sorry, this is blurry. I don't know if I can clean that up a little bit or not. No, that's about it. Sorry. And by diversifying our energy resources in the state, we can reduce customer exposure to the increasing wholesale supply cost of electricity, and also increase the region's energy security. Meaning, if the wire that takes electricity from the power generation station comes to Hopkinton breaks in one of those spots along the 30-mile track, if we have local power generation, our grid is more stable here. I can make these out if you want me to.
Yeah, I can't read it.
The large area on the bottom is the electrical supply. It goes from 2000 to 2012. The orange area is the distribution charge. And the blue area on the very top that's growing on the side there is the transmission charge. So that's what National Grid charges to move electricity from one place to another. I want to say that's its conservation charge in that sort of yellow-green kind of line. And renewable energy standard charge is the little purple thing that kind of shows up here and there. So the state's looking at the rising cost, and they don't foresee it going down. So they see that our bills are just going to continue to increase unless we diversify our energy in the state. I bring up this because a single 1.5 megawatt wind turbine offsets the carbon emissions from about 180 cars. I know that cars are the #1 source of carbon dioxide in the state of Rhode Island, so I'll speculate and say that this is part of the reason why the state wants to shift things around. Yeah, and so these are the groups behind it: Office of Energy Resources, Division of Public Utilities and Carriers. And I thought it was interesting that the little logo that they put in their report for the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers is a new logo from what they have on their website, but it wind power in it, so I think it as an omen. So again, they want to control the rising cost of electricity, provide choice, and build a more flexible grid. And this is on the Public Utilities Commission, Public Utilities and Carriers website. So diverse energy will benefit us the same way it benefits everybody else, largely because lower energy costs, and like I said, lower energy costs, and like I mentioned earlier, lower transmission, because we don't have to move power from one end of the state to the other. So why don't we take a look at this fun little video of a wind turbine. This is the one in Portsmouth, and a single wind turbine like this will generate 1.5 megawatts of electricity, occupies about 200 square feet. Compared to, say, a dozen acres of solar panels to generate the same electricity, which would occupy about 500,000 square feet.
Is this the municipal one, or is this the, of course, the private one?
Of course, with fire. These windmills also create habitats for area monks. I don't know if you saw this or not, but
Create habitats for
monks.
some monks.
This is a Benedictine monk, that's Brother Joseph Byron, who's sunbathing on the top of the thing. He started this wind turbine.
It was an elevator, he didn't just fly up there,
Yeah, I don't know how he got there. He's tasked with maintaining the wind turbine.
Oh, my God.
And he told the Providence Journal that it's not, well, he didn't like being intruded on by the drone, but he mentioned that being up on top of here is not scary at all. It's very peaceful, and the views of the bay are spectacular, which...
You notice it's not moving while he's up there.
It isn't, no, it's
Well,
not.
that's good.
That's a good
While
thing.
he's servicing it.
Yeah,
And I noticed there are houses everywhere.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean,
Why is it
Works really
crazy?
well. I mean, no, for the fall, when something falls.
Oh,
No, you can't.
Well, they have-
Yeah, there's a
16 acres.
Oh, I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how
It
that
didn't
is.
look like it.
The state has siting guidelines that they're recommending, and if we were to adopt wind here, I'd recommend that we follow the state, so we're going to go a little tougher to ensure that even if the thing topples over, nothing's going to get crushed
Isn't that kind
or hit.
of?
And so I just figured, when I compare this to, I brought up how much square footage a solar field would take to generate the same electricity. And this is the solar field that's in East Providence. It's on a landfill. I think it's the largest solar installation in the state currently. It's 20 acres. And it's hard to tell what it looks, it's hard to really tell what this is because, you know, it's somewhere in East Providence, it's surrounded by trees. This is from Google Maps. So I outlined it to get a sense of just how big this is, and then I looked at some of our areas given the same footprint. So 20 acres of solar panels, if we put it in Richmond, would go from Chop Lot all the way to UPS. Cover Stop and Shop entirely. So one wind turbine or 12 or so acres. Similarly, we could take the same area and we could move it over to Crandallfield and take up the entire Crandallfield area with solar panels. So that's how much land gets used up by solar panels. And it's not like you can do anything with that land. It's covered up and fenced off.
John, this is to produce the same number of kilowatts, is that what you're saying?
This produces more. This is the same size as the East Providence installation.
Okay.
So it's 20 acres, so it does the job of 1.x turbines.
All right.
So I don't know if it's
Yeah.
1.5 turbine. I'm not
But it's in the ballpark. We're not talking
It's-
5 turbines versus this area here.
sure. It's,
Okay.
I'm not trying to.
I've been using 10 acres. There's a lot of things that go into how you figure it out because the shape of the property has a lot to do with how efficient they can, tree shading and everything else, you know, messes up how they do the calculation.
Yeah. And that's also, that's 20 acres, so compared to one of the larger solar projects that's gone through the planning board, it was for 60 acres of solar panels. So imagine
Yeah.
3 times that size would probably go all the way and cover up Main Street Pizza and Dunkin' Donuts and the works there.
Put it on our landfill.
That'd be it.
Yeah, well,
love
it's-
the land.
that's land you can't use anyway. Solar makes great sense when you use it to cover a parking lot, to cover a building, so that you can use the space under it, but when you cover up a field, if if someone came by and asked to do this, we'd say no, because that's the field that people use. So it's just something to think about as solar goes in. And then just to drive that point home, this is actually a photograph taken in Germany, but it's just a wide field of solar panels that you can't do anything with. And I'll contrast this with, here's a drone photograph from Coventry. And so wind turbines dot the landscape here, and you can see the clearing around them for development, but there are no fences. And this preserves open space. So these trees, they're going to stay. They'll maintain a road so that they can access these, but by and large, you can have recreational trails or whatever else you wanted to through this land, and preserve it, all the while getting the revenue from leasing 2 acres at a top, I believe, for the wind turbines. And so, in Hopkinton, wind turbines would basically preserve the town's character. It would preserve the land, preserve the landscape, wouldn't build any fences, wouldn't cover any fields, any grazing fields. We're probably at the epicenter of this because rural land is cheap. It's pretty inexpensive for a developer to come in here and cut down 80 acres of trees and put up solar panels. You can't do that in Providence, and you can't do it in Cranston. So
That's because I don't have it.
they don't have it, right?
Well,
So-
we do, so.
The perimeter of the state is what everybody's looking at.
Or put up houses.
What's that?
So they put solar panels, and I said, oh, put up houses.
Or put up houses, you know. If solar panels go on the houses, I think that
Well, I
makes
could do that.
good sense. And so I guess I'll talk a little bit about siting. I'm not an expert when it comes to siting, but I'm sure that you're all thinking about flicker when it comes to wind turbines. So this is an image provided by Green Development, and it's hard to see. There's a circle in the middle there which represents about 50 acres.
That's exactly 50 acres.
So
The
800
red
feet.
part?
There's a red circle centered on what
Oh,
we
I
call the
see,
center.
around
It
the
doesn't-
purple, yeah.
That-
Okay,
Like this circle that goes around.
yeah.
Yeah.
The dark blue purple area represents where there will be 30 to 100 hours of flicker if there were a window there. So you don't see flicker if you're out in the woods sitting near a fan. You only see flicker when the sun is passing through the blades and then into your window. So imagine if there were right outside that window or outside that window a fan and light coming through it, you'd see the flicker. If the building were here, you wouldn't really notice the flicker, as it turns out. So in that blue area, there'd be 30 to 100 hours of flicker. And the draft ordinance that we would recommend, we would say no more than 30 hours of flicker per year. And that would include part of the siting, because you can see the lighter area, that extends really, really far. But only in certain directions, and that just basically has to do with where the sun sits in the time of day.
And the position of
Yeah.
power.
No, I forgot to put my illustration in here. I did. Oops. I'll come back around to that. So I took this drawing and I just dropped it on an arbitrary piece of land in Hopkinton. Just looked kind of woodsy.
People might know what land that is.
Yeah, but and again, I'm not a siting expert. It's
Rushing Brook.
a few hundred acre property here. It seems like you could put 3 very easily, and the flicker lines, down to even 10 hours a year, don't touch anybody's yards. There could probably be others along the other side there. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a planner or a site person. I'm a developer. So it just looks like an opportunity. And a wind turbine generates some revenue, about $5,000 a month.
To the landowner, 5,000 a month,
At least.
60,000 a year.
So that's a lot of money. And it would also, again, if looking at open space, it would ensure that kind of stays a forest for a long time and still pay for the cost.
Bushy Brook's not a farm, right?
It is not a farm.
That has been kept in very serious consideration.
So, in a sense that it can work in lands like this and it provides great revenue, when to support Hopkinton's residents. Again, with the price, and when you think about $60,000 a year, the state median household income is $58,387, according to the Department of Labor and Training, using 2012 to 2016 data. The Hopkinton median household income is a bit higher, $74,436. And that amounts to just over $34,000 per capita in Hopkinton. So when you talk about a farm, for example, operating a wind turbine, it covers the basics, right? So you're not scraping. And it can be very, very helpful.
What's the tangible taxes to the town?
The state has that mandated per megawatt.
It's $5 per megawatt,
And he's,
per kilowatt.
Per kilowatt.
Per kilowatt.
and he's produced how many kilowatts?
1,500.
1,500. The formula would be 7,500. I know that green development, the people we know the most, they strike deals to up that. I think they're paying more than, a little over 10,000 instead of 7,500 up in Coventry, maybe because they have more wind turbines there. You know, they worked kind of a deal out, and they could share some of the savings of having multiple wind turbines.
So what's the number, 7,500 or 10,000? depending?
Well, they're actually paying 10,000, or maybe, actually, Mark Di Pasquale said they were paying 40% more, and that worked out to more than 10,000. So it's either 10,000 or more than, a little more than 10,000, 10,000 and a fraction.
10,000 a month, 10,000 a year.
10,000 a year to the town in the tangible tax, or tangible tax plus a bonus or
Plus a
whatever you
minimum.
call
Well,
it.
there's tangible tax plus property tax.
Yeah, that stays the same.
Right.
That's the tangible
It
tax.
becomes commercial, it goes from residential to
Right.
commercial. So it's a much higher property tax for the land, and you've got the tangible tax.
I
That's
don't know how you,
substantial.
I couldn't begin to answer how you do
Yeah,
it
they
with
don't
the
do it
property
as
tax.
farmland, it becomes commercial land.
Now, how much land
Even
around
if
that?
it's a
That's
farm
what,
thing,
that's the
isn't it?
question.
How
Is
much-
it 1 acre or is it 20 acres?
1 acre.
Why do we settle on 1 acre? Why do we go 1
I
acre?
asked that the last time, and that's what the tax assessor said. At the moment, it's an acre. I don't even think it's 2 acres. But it's 1 acre at 45,000, which is commercial acreage. And then on top of that.
Because the footing is at 1 acre.
No,
No.
the footings,
No, but they use
Right.
it.
20 feet.
So who said we only go out 1 acre?
Well, the solar has to be commercial or...
Right.
Right?
We haven't got...
I think your big, I
Point.
think your big piece of the tax is probably gonna be that tangible tax cost. How much tax do you get on
Commercial land?
an acre of land?
An acre
A
of
commercial,
land is
it's
farm
$1,000
forest.
maybe?
No, farm forest is $300.
$300 an acre.
It's $300 an acre if it's farm forest, but once it becomes wind or solar, it gets 45,000 per acre
Of assessment.
assessment. And that is something that
And
you
that
want.
amounts to about $1,000 paid out, I think.
Yeah, and that is something you want, of course, the company to pay, not the farmer or whoever is owning it. You arrange with your company that they will pay that additional tax above your whatever normal property taxes.
See, my concern is, and I'm looking at what's the benefit to the town? I understand the individual person who puts it on their property, they're benefiting the most. But there are other people in this, that live in this town that have to look at it.
Yeah, so...
365,
Yeah,
so I'm just trying to figure out what is the benefit for the town as a whole?
Every single taxpayer,
Well,
That's
yeah.
right.
everyone.
That's what I mean,
The
you
benefit...
said it goes down because we don't have to transfer. Well, that's across the state, that's not just Hopkins. So, and actually National Grid just went up, a couple months ago.
Yes.
So if it's $1,000 an acre in taxes and $7,500 for the tangibles, that's $8,500 a year.
Right.
It's not much, what they do is there's a cash in lieu of whatever, right, John?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Payment
is
in
what
lieu of taxes,
private
yes,
does.
yes.
And what is
So
that?
it can be substantial. When I toured the one in Coventry with Marilyn, Harvey, Al, and whoever else I forget, but it was a lot of money. I know this gal back there, she can probably attest to, I think, what was it, didn't Situate have wind, was introduced, and they got a cash infusion from this developer, I think it was almost $1 million, to supplement their new police station. You know, it's a lot of money, so, you know, it's not just the tangibles are not even you can't even compare the tangible revenue to solar. It's not even the same at all. But it's the
Well, these are the
cash,
numbers, I mean,
it's the cash up front.
I'm not gonna sit up here and vote on a wind ordinance where
Well, it's just a
it benefits one
Oh, no,
person.
no, no, right.
When we're here, the five of us are here to represent every
Everyone.
resident within the town of Hopkinton.
Well, and I can,
So that's what I'm trying to weigh the difference.
Well, that's the
How?
benefit. So
Can I
that's
talk?
the benefit.
So there's another side to all of this too.
of course.
This is all positive. And I think, my concern is I don't think that enough information is out and reference, because I've got documents that can refute a lot of things. And so there are two sides to it, and which is why I asked, I've said to our president, that Frank, that I'd like to see this discussion at the council meeting, just to decide whether or not we should put a referendum, a non-binding question to the voters, and let the voters decide. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why I'm opposed to this, and of course I'm opposed to the ordinance. I don't think they should be in town at this time. But I think though, for a whole bunch of reasons I'm opposed to it. But what does the town think? And a good time to find out is to ask them a question. So I don't have a problem going into the ordinance and tightening things up and having it ready. And then if the voters decide that they want it, then I'll work toward them having it, and we'll all try to do the best we can, make sure it's good. A good project.
Yeah, so, yeah.
However, things like the land around it, it does affect birds, some birds, it does affect animals. Up in Maine, there's information that says that they used to have mooses in the area, multiple, and they disappear. And there are people who put these things up and they hunt. And now they can't find what they used to find for hunting. So the other thing is, how do you even transport these things? These things they're huge, they're long, and they gotta go around streets and everything. So that's a difficulty. But once it's up and running, I do not believe that you can just have cows underneath and use the land, because from what I've gathered, 1 in 100 for every 100 turbines, one blade will break off. You got snow, you got ice. We don't have ice storms too often, but they happen occasionally. Even if it's one, it could really cause a problem. I think that, of course, I like the solar because you can hide it, and when the solar comes out of favor or they can do something else, the trees can grow again. So anyway, those are just some of the concerns. There's many more.
So let me just get us back on point. I know, there's obviously some that don't want it. Tonight, we're not making any votes on anything. We're not, solidifying any wind ordinance tonight for sure. It's just a back and forth discussion with the conservation folks and us. So
And I'd like to see,
it's a learning experience, I guess. So.
I'd like John to continue so we can see this and then come back and ask all the
Yeah,
questions.
sure.
Because I certainly have some too, but I'd
Yeah,
like to see.
there are plenty of questions. And I'm not going to pretend to have all the facts, because I don't. I wouldn't. But given the way that this could work and the benefits to property owners, and also given the alternative to how much land solar consumes, I really do think that wind will support Hopkinton's residents. And it's a financial consideration for the owner, but it's also a beautiful consideration considering the land. When I think about the nature trail on Grills Preserves, and it's abutted by an 80-acre solar farm. that I believe he voted unanimously to change the zoning to create. That's not hiding anything, it's putting it in plain sight to all the people who are luring into the town to participate in ecotourism. So, you know, many may enjoy it, but it's, many may not.
All those neighbors in the front were very happy at the end of the meeting that are gonna abut it.
Don't forget, those trees were getting cut down anyway,
That's right.
because there was a campground going
Campground or?
That was- that was-
Campground,
that was,
sure.
in. So it,
Mhm. And just to give a sense of we've already provided this photograph of our telephone poles through town and the wires. So it's, you know, we don't have a pristine landscape everywhere we look.
Did you see the double pole? Is that what-
Teasing Tom.
There is one in there.
Bill, get on that, will you? Call Michelle.
And I don't have a slide to show it, but I drew it and I just didn't put it in here. I'm kicking myself. Here's some photographs taken in Coventry. This is one of the site visits that we made. And just to give you a sense of what it looks like with cars parked right under it. And I was standing right under it, and it was a really windy day. It's pretty neat. It does, I'm not going to say it's quiet, it makes noise, but it's a lot quieter than like an air conditioning unit at my neighbor's house, for example. So it's, I was telling Harvey, I was filming it with my phone, my professional, you know, HD phone. And I was trying to capture the sound of the wind turbines, and I couldn't because the guy who runs wind energy just wouldn't stop talking. And so, like, all I got was him talking, like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. So, if anything else, standing directly underneath it and the guy talking over there is louder than it, just to give you a sense. And this is standing at the base of that turbine, looking at the next one over. It's largely obscured by the tree line. And this is the way it's probably going to be a lot of times here in Hopkinton. It's not very often that I'm 100 feet from the tree line when I'm in Hopkinton. I'm just not. And if I'm within about 100 feet, I won't even see that much. They're really difficult to see from the ground and from up close. They're easy to see when you're looking down the street. So for example, the one down opposite the buildings further on, you could glimpse at it from down the street. If there were one over there, you wouldn't see it because the trees are too close.
You see these more easily from 102 heading up the hill.
Yeah, once you're on site, they're surprisingly difficult to see. And there I am just standing back away from it. And I moved maybe 20 feet to take those two different photographs, or at least hardly in this case. I have similar photos. And you can see what it looks like. I can pull this up on Google Maps if you want to. Since we're here. So that's what it looks like. These are the individual turbines. And they're scattered around up here. There's one further up here. It's hard to see on the screen. I apologize.
The farmers using that land around, one of the turbines, he had cords and cords of wood. He was using it as right up to the turbine. I mean, it's got use, and to the extent that he's got something growing there, they can farm right up to it.
The town of West Warwick owns 3 of those, I think, half a dozen, I think. 3
In Coventry, yes.
Does anybody remember when Westerly, there were 2 that were gonna go in Westerly? It was like 4 or 5 years ago? And one of them was gonna be located in Bradford. I don't know if everybody remember that, but it was gonna be in a residential area up on a hill, and it got thrown away. I mean, in the end, the council decided not to do it. There was too much opposition to it. And that was like 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
And sometimes that opposition is really from a few local people. And so maybe a referendum is a acceptable way to go, because those people can't they can only cast one vote.
Litmus test. A litmus test.
Well, there's a lot of them in Massachusetts.
Do you have more
Go
time?
home there. Yeah.
I don't think it
Have
can
we
say.
ever
No, no,
considered
no.
becoming a green community and getting all our
Trying to see the
energy?
problem myself. So,
I've got more comments when you're done.
sure. Well,
Yeah, so can you continue?
why don't I wrap it up? That's really all I got. So I think that, given the light of, given it with what kind of, what we're facing with and what it could be for opportunity, it's going to benefit us ultimately.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty late on it, yeah.
Oh.
And you have parties do whatever.
You guys want the fan on out there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you done with that?
Yeah, that's all I
I
got.
just have a few things I want to
Sure.
hand out something. So, what we were looking at in the ordinance was to expand it a bit to allow both certain farms, large farms, where they've got that 50-acre basically radius around the wind turbine or not, and also to look at it as ways that the town might benefit directly. For instance, you might be able to put one at the landfill and have solar there as well. And maybe that would be enough to justify being able to run the cables to take the electricity out. The land trust was to purchase Russian Brook, as an example, with the money that they'd make from the wind turbines, it would cost the town. And that electricity could, for instance, maybe it would come down the poles along Canachet Road, and they could pick up from the landfill could tie into that, so the town could directly benefit as basically being an owner. So there's some things there are other large properties in town that would warrant consideration for preservation that could be protected with putting some wind turbines on them. So there's some other things there that I just wanted to bring out. In the process of doing a review, our intention would be that it would be a development plan review by the planning board with a paid consultant paid by the applicant to advise the planning board. So we're looking to try to ensure we have all the technical capabilities to do a thorough review of the project. We talked about bird kills. I have a lot of information on bird kills. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it right now, but Eco Rhode Island News just this past week did a study that fossil fuel plants, when you factor in all the things you have to factor, kill many times more birds than wind turbines for the same amount of electricity generated, like a ratio of 10 to 20 to 1. The domestic cats kill between 1 and I think it's 3 billion birds a year, 10,000 times more than wind turbines kill. So sometimes you just have to bring the perspective to it to understand what's being talked about. 10 wind turbines would probably generate the electricity we need to power our town. There's support for wind turbines in Hopkinton. Environmentalists support wind turbines. Farmers support the wind turbines. The Conservation Commission supports the wind turbines. The Land Trust supports the wind turbines. The Planning Board supports wind turbines, at least the concept of wind turbines, which is what we're asking you to do too, so that we can finalize the documents, you know where we stand, and come forward with a wind protection ordinance. And that's what we'd like to do. I made a handout that I would just like to quickly give you so I can run through some numbers. So that's all around, there's enough for everyone. And this is partly, Sylvia, this is partly because of your initial concerns that we would have possibly hundreds of wind turbines in town. Because initially you were doing a study based on 15 acres, which is where you transition into an intermediate or large farm by the Farm Viability Ordinance. but you can't put these big wind turbines on 15 acres. So 50 is about the right entry number. You could probably go to 40, but 50 gives us a lot of extra protection. So did a calculation. We started out by saying, well, how many 50-acre properties do we have in town? There's 101. 37 of those are on preserved land, which is Arcadia, DEM, Land Trust, Nature Conservancy, and such. So that brings us down to less, over 2/3 of the way down. There's 54 of those that are on larger properties that would not qualify as a farm, and they're not land owned by the town or the land trust. So
But Harvey, we're not, this is not geared for the farm viability ordinance.
no.
So it's just land that can benefit from this.
I'm sorry.
Anyone who has more than 50 acres, they
We
don't have to be a farm.
we've left a requirement in the draft ordinance that you would be a large farm of 50 acres or more, meeting the definition of a large farm of 50 acres, would be one of the qualifying criteria. Not a freestanding ordinance, but that would be a criteria, because we still have the goal of trying to preserve our large farms.
So is it only the legal farms? It's not, I own 50 acres, so I can do it? I have to become a
Right.
farm first.
Right
It
now,
takes 2 years, correct?
yes, and
All
what
right.
yeah, and the general idea behind it is what we were trying to do was to put all kinds of restraints on this, so that the town council would feel comfortable that you're in charge and it's not going to blow up in your face. And so, large farms, 50 acres or more, that means they've been doing their farm 1040S for a couple of years, got $10,000 of income. And I'm jumping out of my water here, but we put in a sunset clause so that this ordinance would only be good for people who get on board for 1 or 2 years. So the idea was to put lots of constraints. The future town council could easily extend that life of the ordinance, but they don't have to. So if things are not going the way you want it, it just shuts down on its own. So we came up with approximately 10 large farms that could qualify for wind energy. They had a total of 1,217 acres. Dividing by 50, if somebody has 90 acres, they qualify for 1 wind turbine, not 2. You don't round up. So basically we came up with a theoretical possibility of 21 wind turbines on these large farms. But then when you start trying to accommodate the other constraints that exist, National Grid has a limited capacity. Their interconnection fees can be very large. The developer has various practical issues. They don't want to put a wind turbine where they're not going to catch the wind on the base of a hill on the wrong side. Setbacks, we went with a greater setback. We had 1.5 from the property line. We put 2 from any occupied building. The spacing between the wind turbines, 2.5 times or 1,000 feet, whichever is greater, so you're not going to pack them in. The flat shadow flicker diagrams would be generated for each individual site. It would be very similar looking to those. Those are that one that John showed is very similar to what they all look like. It just has to do with the latitude we're at and the way the sun's going through the sky at different times of the year. And they have great technology today to be able to control it. So if they know it's going to be a sunny morning, and this is one of those days of the year that the sun is going to hit that house over there, they just turn the turbine off for 10 minutes until that shadow passes. There's things like that that can be done pretty readily. So we felt like out of that 21, right off the bat, we found approximately 9 that they were not going to be practical. And they brought us down to approximately 12 for the farms.
However, you skipped over the 50-acre conservation easement area.
Okay, so one of the requirements that we put in, what we did was we came up with a list of things that we thought could give the town control. and then we just wrote them into the language of the draft ordinance that we worked on. And the 50 acres, within that 50 acres, you can't develop. Now, a farmer can farm, a farmer could maybe put a greenhouse, as long as the farm activity could go on in there, but you're not going to be able to put a house or something like that in that area. So we're basically getting a conservation easement on that 50 acres for the life of that wind turbine. So, you know, some of these things have financial benefits to the town. You know, they're just less predictable than to say you're going to get $10,000 in taxes. So we brought that down to approximately 12. Now we have, the planning board is going to do a review that could easily whittle a couple of marginal projects out. And those time constraints, the fact that people are not going to be able to get all of those projects lined up in that first year or two, I think that brings it down. So we came down to a best guess of six wind turbine solar farms that would be from the get-go for this ordinance. Then we looked at what the town could do. So the only place we found that the town has capability of doing something we thought was the landfill.
I don't think they're going to let us because they don't want us mucking about. That's why they're in favor of solar on the dump, but not a wind turbine because they don't want to dig.
I would not think they would let you penetrate. I don't think the wind
Right.
turbine company would wish to penetrate down through 30 feet of
Or not even near it.
unknown
Or
stuff.
not even near it. They don't even want you near it on land next to it.
Okay, so that is.
So you
So-
don't want to count that.
So if you're trying to get the number down, I think we just got it down
Yep.
by one, possibly right there. The land trust, I went with a number of guesses as, just as, for instance, the Russian Brook, I thought we could fit 5 in. There's 350 acres up there. And 50 acres, that would be 250, so I thought we could probably do that. If that's what we do, that certainly would provide enough money. And I'm not talking about we have any kind of agreement or anything, I'm just saying this is something that may happen.
Harvey, the second line at the top, it says less preserved land number, minus 37. And then down here, you're saying about the Hubbard Land Trust, which is preserved property, preserved land. So you're saying one up here, you're minus it by 37, but now you're adding it to this one down here.
Well, down at the bottom, the land trust right now has 0 potential for wind turbines on properties they presently own. Those properties are either too small or they're mostly all tied up with conservation easements owned by DEM or DNC or something, so those will not receive wind turbines. We're talking about future purchases that the land trust could do.
Yeah, somebody made a comment about purchasing Russian Brook.
So, I mean, maybe it's a pipe dream, but you gotta start someplace.
So it's that, so the bottom number is really for something that they may buy. The less preserved land number of minus 37
That's
is DEM, is Arcadia, are all the
Right.
places that,
Boy Scouts.
Right, those are off the plate, they'll stay off the plate.
so the 5 is like the town Hopkinton Land Trust wind turbine.
So again, we came up with a number down there of 9 or 10. And just again, due to the time constraints and everything else, first time around, at best we would get some lesser number, let's say 5. So there's 6 maybe on farms, 5 maybe on land trust if we can move fast enough and we can find a willing seller. And that's basically at least it brings the numbers down, and I think these are valid numbers. I think it brings it down to an area where at least we know that these things aren't going to be everywhere, and they could do a lot of good for the town. And if I could just quickly on the next page, just run through some of the economic benefits again. And one of these turbines will provide for 300 to 350 houses, depends on just how fast the wind is. So 10 wind turbines would pretty well cover our residential needs in Hopkinton. One wind turbine, this is where I came up with the number of 10 acres based on the best calculations. I took the 60-acre project, which is really 80-something acres, and it ran through their numbers and kind of came up to this. 10 wind turbines consume less than an acre, you may tax them for an acre, Barbara, or whatever you need that. Whatever you can get, I understand how you guys work. But the actual land that's just totally committed to that purpose, it's obviously, if there isn't a driveway there, Brushy Brook has already got the road. If you have to do that, then those things do affect it some. The money that comes into the property owner, whether it be the town land trust, or it be a farmer, it makes a huge difference. I do think it will go a long ways towards maintaining the farms in the open space, which keeps our property taxes lower. Gives the land trust a potential way to fund completely some large purchases. I know, and I could not nail green energy down on this because it's the kind of thing where they have to kind of negotiate with the town council. But they have done these other projects. I believe it was Coventry, where they actually created a scholarship program and stuff that apparently was something that the town wanted. And by doing a package, anyway, a bargain was struck. So there are other things that can be done that would benefit the town. You can use your own imagination. First thing I thought of was a town hall expansion, if you got some help with that. And then back onto the energy side and the environment side, it replaces the damaging climate change power sources. Then the earnings stay in the local economy, in the town, and in the state. It doesn't all go off to Texas or Saudi Arabia or someplace. So what we were hoping to get kind of tonight, we're trying to work the same way we did with land trust and work with the planning board and stuff, is we're looking for basically an endorsement of the concept of when it's being appropriate to the town. And preferably it would be work for it. I think we've done a lot of initial good work and some good ideas. You could do some direction, obviously, to planner, the town manager, the town staff, the planning board and such, and let all those folks have a good crack at this. We certainly had discussions with them, and I'd like to see it be a more polished ordinance, and we hope that at some point we'll be able to actually advocate for the passage of it either yourselves or through a referendum.
I've got a question on the
Hold on,
numbers.
yeah, let
Yeah,
Barbara-
before
these guys-
Harvey leaves.
Oh, yeah, he's not going. Barbara,
That way.
if he goes, I go.
I actually took a look at this, I have some notes on how I think the ordinance can be improved. Overall, my issue is I like wind. I like windmills. I happen to think they're gorgeous. I think they're elegant, I think they're sophisticated, and I think they do the job they're supposed to do and shut up. However, the other issue is that there are a lot of people in Hopkinton who do not like them. And that's an aesthetic. It has nothing to do with economy, it doesn't have to do with clean energy, it doesn't have to do with money, it doesn't have to do with anything actually at all, except that they don't like what they look like. And there are a lot of people, I think, in Hopkinton who feel that way. So I am interested in working on this wind ordinance because I'd like to see it tightened and really clean. I know that Sylvia has suggested the referendum, which may or may not be a good idea because it's not something I think the town council should give away because we're actually the ones, this is a zoning problem.
Non-binding.
It's non-binding, but it's a zoning issue. But I think, I think that has to be looked at. I have to see if that's something that, I don't want to do something now that is going to affect me in the future. Like people say, well, you can't do that unless you have a non-binding referendum. I really want to be careful about that where the council's concerned, so we continue to keep our fingers on the zoning, the ordinances, all the things that as a government we're supposed to do. So I'd like to look into that a little bit further. But in the meantime, I'd also like to make some notes on the wind. Can I do that?
Well, it's not an ordinance
I know.
workshop, I mean, I don't wanna get so granular where it's gonna, we're gonna be.
Okay, I don't think it, I think most.
Because you got a lot of pages there, tab.
I know.
So let's not go to the ordinance. Because obviously, I think if we get to that point, we're obviously gonna have to tighten that up. So I don't think we really need to get into that right now. It's just a general conversation. He's looking for some kind of an endorsement. Yeah, we think it's okay, or we don't think it's okay. So let's not get too granular on it, because obviously there's a lot of work to do. If
So
we do-
you don't really want us to get into detail tonight?
No.
Oh, then let's ask everybody how they
Right,
feel.
that's what I'm saying. Just, we heard the
You
presentation.
know how I feel.
Yeah, so.
I have, just
If you don't, one second, Tom, let David voice his concern that he hasn't spoken yet.
Yeah, I got a few things. Javi, especially Javi and John, I want to thank you for the work you've done on this, because I know you spent a lot of time on this situation. I've got a lot of questions that really have to be answered regarding wind turbines in this town. I know it's a nice slide presentation, John. I got a couple of problems with the slide presentation. First of all, it's really nice to stand 200 yards away from the wind turbine and say, Jesus, it's almost blocked by the trees. However, when we had the first slide with the monk sitting on top of the wind turbine, it goes back to the old story. If you can see my lens, when the cameraman takes a picture of a person, if you can see my lens, I can see you. Well, I guess what? Everybody that you could see from that drone flying around the wind turbine, everybody for 5 miles out, maybe 7 miles out, can see that wind turbine. So it's real nice to stand 200 yards away and say, I can only see half of it. You stand 4 miles away, and you can still see it. You're 10 miles away. So I don't like that. And Javi, please don't compare wind turbines with telephone poles and communication poles, because telephone poles and communication poles, everybody uses. Everybody has to have them. Wind turbines help a select few people and a little bit to the town because through taxes. So there's no comparison between apples and parsnips. So that's one thing. I'm concerned about the number of the town, and that Javi, thanks for putting that together. I'll take another look at that too. That's very interesting. I'm concerned about the number in town. I'm also concerned for people like Gary, because Gary, if you put one up because you've got 50 acres or more, you get more than 50 acres. But if somebody puts one up, they've got 55 acres. They can't sell any of that acreage anymore, because at that point, they're under 50 acres. So what are we gonna do about that guy that says, geez, I'd like to sell a couple of lots to my son over here, a couple of 2-acre lots, and all of a sudden he goes down to 45 acres. Well, now you got a wind turbine on his property, and he's not a 50-acre farm anymore. He's not a large farm anymore. Or he wants to sell, off to somebody else, doesn't have to be a son or a daughter. So there's a problem there. You're restricting that person. I do believe, like it or not, there's going to be a decrease in property values because there's a wind turbine a quarter mile away from my house. It doesn't flicker on me, but boy, I can stand in my backyard and see this big thing going up around it like that. And where you could sell this house for, he or she could sell the house for X, Y, Z, now it's only going to be X and Y because they got a wind turbine going around for the next 20 years in the backyard. So I'm a little concerned about that. I'm also concerned that can the town control the location if the acreage is there? And we've really got to be tough with this. You're talking about Brushy Brook, and the next thing you know is that all of a sudden, if we put them up in Brushy Brook, somebody else is going to come along and say, I'm not a farm, but you put them up in Brushy Brook, and that's not a farm, so I want them on my 60 acres. So if we put them on anything other than, if we widen the scope on this thing beyond a farm, farm acreage, we're looking for trouble, because everybody that's got large acreage now can say, I need one, I need one, I want to have one, you put them there, I want them too. So we got to worry about that too. There's going to be a core argument sooner or later on why just large farms, and who came to the idea what's a large farm, what's not a large farm. Why is it 50 acres, why can't it be 45 acres? So I can see a problem there. Javi, we got to watch out with Conservation Commission, and I hate to have this thing on tape, but it's going to be on tape. Javi, you got to watch out with Conservation Commission support of this, because Gary's on the Conservation Commission. Gary owns the one dairy farm in the town. And I love you, Gary. I love the farm. I love cows. I worked farms for a couple of years when I was a teenager. Love them. But
I just mentioned when Gary came on, we had 4 dairy farms in
yeah,
town.
I know.
You solicited Gary because we wanted to have representation on the Conservation Commission from farms.
And I think he's done a nice job as Conservation Commissioner. I'm a little concerned about conflict of interest. And that's exactly what it's all about.
Don't worry about that, David.
Okay, that's right, but so I'm just saying, there has to be a limited amount of support to a certain extent from the Conservation Commission. Unfortunately, because Gary's right there, and Gary's going to benefit directly if this farm ordinance, this change comes in. And then I guess the last thing is, I gotta say, what's our definition of a farm? And a farm, you have to produce so many dollars worth of produce off the farm for a couple of years in a row. Well, what's produce or what's, Gary produces milk. Some other guy may say, I produce gravel. You got a gravel bank that's 100 acres or 75 acres, he's going to want to put a wind turbine up because he says, I'm harvesting gravel out of my farm. So we've got to really define
Schedule F.
exactly what a farm is.
Schedule F on your tax return, it's very specific.
It is.
It's not related. It's farm related.
It's going to be farm.
Wood, yeah.
Wait, is it wood? You said it was sawmill? I mean, you
Oh,
know,
not a sawmill, that's not, that's
No,
a pretty big.
I'm not looking for argument here, Frank, but I'm just saying that I can see people
You're gonna
saying,
have-
I'm farming my
Well, they have
property.
to prove it.
Yeah.
10,000 or more in income the last 2 years on their schedule.
Yeah, you can do that with a gravel pit, you can do that with a sawmill.
I don't think
that's
so.
almost
I don't think
everything.
so. I don't think that would pass muster on farm.
Yeah, and I don't know what a bale of hay goes, but, I like pay for a bale, but, so somebody puts, so these,
Somebody could become a farmer.
yeah, yeah, that's
As long as
what
you file
I'm
the
concerned about.
pay.
Simply to get one of these windmills, and then, how long does he have to be a farmer? Every year? And he can't sell his land because he reduces the size of the property. So these are all the questions that we have to answer.
That's a good point. What happens if you cease to make that $10,000 a year farming?
Right, but the thing is still
They
saying,
could put in some provision where you have to show the schedule F. And if you don't,
I'm just,
yeah. Right, no.
what's coming up is gas.
what happens if the
That's what it's
turbines up
about.
there?
That's
The
what it's
turbines up and
about.
running, and now, what's
So
going to
they're
happen?
getting 60,000 from the windmill, they don't have to do the cows or whatever their egg farming is.
Start off on the other.
Yeah.
So there's all these
That
little
was
questions.
a good.
But you can't sell land off that farm because you don't want to get less than 50 acres, or that's not a 50-acre farm. Yes, sir.
To the point, these are all legitimate, they're all great
Yeah.
concerns. There are two that I would address. One is the property value.
Yep.
The state has done research that shows that if, they believe it has no impact on property value. I think that's hard to swallow too, but they said if it does,
Yeah.
it's fewer than 5%. So that's the state's line, that's not mine.
Yeah.
And in respect to farms and changing acreage, the existing farm viability ordinance defines farms, and there's a 1 acre solar allotment for farm viability. So however the town addresses the problem there, I guess it would be the same thing that applies. So Reynolds Farm put in 1 acre of solar panels, and you see them. That's probably going to limit his ability to subdivide. I don't know how the town does that, but there will be a point at which he no longer qualifies as a farm that then can have 1 acre of solar.
Right.
So whatever the solution the town has for that, I would imagine would apply to wind as well. Not that I know what that is.
Yeah, that's a concern. It's a
Yeah.
concern for the landowner, for the poor guy, all of a sudden he realizes, gee, I got this thing in here, and now I can't do anything with my property.
Yeah.
For me, as I mentioned to Harvey, it was mainly to help out Gary with his farm. That's what,
I'm gonna get up and talk in a minute, because I gotta answer a lot of these questions.
Okay.
well, it's just, my thought was to
No, I'm all for helping out.
help out the
Absolutely.
large farms, including Gary. That was my main thrust of kind of maybe reintroducing this and obviously seeking input from everyone else. So on the surface, I'm in favor of at least sniffing around and getting more specific perhaps. But that's where I stand, so.
So are
Another
you for or against? Did we come to a conclusion?
Oh, if these questions can be answered, and I can, and people will understand, that I don't want them all over town, and that these kind of things, I could be for it, but I'm not crazy about them because I know how far you can see them 10 to 15 miles away, they just sit there. That's not too bad, but when you get up pretty fairly close to them, and there's no trees blocking them, or you're on a road and you're driving along through, you call it Hopkinton, rural Hopkinton, and all of a sudden you got half a dozen of these things popping up here or there, it doesn't add to the ambiance in this town. It really doesn't. So there's a lot of questions I want answered before I give the nod for these things. Gary's case, I don't want Gary having one of them on his property to preserve the rural atmosphere of the town, because that's what Gary's farm's all about. They got the cows grazing, it looks good, you drive 195, you see cows. But you know, I'm a little concerned about how many other people are gonna say, me too, me too, me too, and the next thing you know is we got more than me too, we got me three, me four, me five, me six.
So, Gary, you wanna give us a quick spiel?
Can I ask a couple questions first?
Yeah, sure.
What's the life of a windmill? 25 years?
10.
25 is
So
what
same
I
as solar.
Well, it's guaranteed for warranty for 10.
Okay, maybe this is going to Kevin. How would the legalities hold up if the town decided to do, if we put that 1 or 2 year, you have to do it within 2 years?
Sunset clause.
Sunset clause, thank you.
Yeah.
What if the town wanted to do that later, after that? Are we still, would we still be, or if we did it, would that open it all up again?
I mean, after it expires?
After the sunset clause closes, and the town says, yeah, let's us put up.
Future council say, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
somebody else comes up and says, I want to put up a windmill now, or we can afford it now to put the windmill up. How is that going to affect the legality of that whole ordinance? And also, is there a legal thing where, why are you being biased to me? Because I have 200 acres of open space, farm forest open space, I'm not a farm,
Right?
but why can't I have one? I mean, is there
Yeah, why?
prejudice against those people? I mean, these are the legal things that are gonna come to bite us
The
after.
second point you make is easier for me to address in theory than the first. Because the first part of what you asked about sunset clauses and legality of it, and coming and going and coming back, and it's all going to depend on exactly how the original sunset clause is worded and how it's applied and how it's restricted and what rights that gives the person or the owner within that, say if it's 2 years, within that 2-year period. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. I'd be irresponsible of me to even suggest to you that
Well,
that's...
I was more thinking on that sunset clause as far as the town goes. The town's the one that wrote the ordinance, but we need to break it because we want to put a window in.
Well,
I
again,
mean,
it would depend on how the sunset clause was phrased in the first place. You could solve that problem by putting an escape, or an exemption rather, for the town right from the get-go. So it depends on the wording, and I can't
yeah.
bless something that hasn't even been written down. So that one's difficult to answer. The other one is a little more intriguing to me and maybe a little more, I think when this first came up, I was thinking, well, okay, I understand the need and the desire to preserve farmland in Hopkinton. I fully understand and appreciate that. But if, as your question suggests, if there's a large landowner who is not a farm, why couldn't they put one up too? And would that trigger some kind of unfair right applied to, somebody has a right, somebody else doesn't have a right, what's the basis for the difference? And is that discriminatory? I mean, I think that's a valid concern. I suppose, again, it would depend on how the thing was written, but I think that exclusion of non-farm property would have to be explained in the ordinance. It would have to be, there'd have to be a rational basis for it, that it would have to be articulated in the ordinance. And I can't think of one off the top of my head, even given the need to preserve farmland. And maybe there's other lands that need to be preserved too, for other equally valid reasons. So it's a difficult thing, and the other thing is with, you didn't raise this, but your question sort of brings it into the discussion. Well, people will compare it more to cell towers than telephone poles and such. Because cell towers can go really high. And the thing about cell towers is the federal law preempts local zoning from restricting, so that when we have a height restrictions in our zoning ordinance, they don't apply to federally sanctioned cell phone towers. But I'm not aware that that's the case of any federal preemption or state preemption yet for wind turbines. So again, that raises another question on zoning, which causes some difficulty about, you have to you have to define, when you're trying to restrict the number of large structures like that that are not preemptive, how do you do that in a zoning ordinance? And how can you maintain height restrictions? So these are all things that would have to be carefully considered ahead of time. Again, it would depend on how this was drafted, but those are questions that popped into my questions and concerns that I'm just saying they need to be studied a lot to make sure it makes sense legally. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. So those are my concerns. I mean, there's the legalities, of possibly not being able to restrict it to a certain number, to a certain demographic, and then we get sued, and then it opens it up, and then we have one on every 50 acres and above.
And just on that, if we had pretty much the same kind of restrictions that the 50 acres, that sort of thing in there, it's still a fairly low number, I believe it would be, and we certainly could tweak it from that viewpoint. I certainly would prefer us to give preference to the farms. But if it had to be open, frankly, I don't have a problem with it being open to others myself. I mean, I know what you're saying about...
On your paper, it's 101 windmills.
37 of those are on preserved lands.
Oh, mine's, sorry.
But the 54, up to 54, if they have 50 acres, could become a farm over 2 acres.
I don't have the
In
actual...
order to
Well, you
have...
didn't tell what my point was.
No, I'm just making
If
the
we
same.
come up with somebody who has a large piece and say, hey, look, I'm being discriminated against because you won't let me have this and garner this revenue, that's still...
Your 50 acres could be 75 acres or some other number, you know, we could take a look at ways to get us in the ballpark of a place that would be acceptable. So there's
But that's, I mean, I'm looking at your numbers that you give us, and even, like I said, 54 is still...
So I mean, we can actually look at those real numbers and look at all of those
How many
54
farms
parcels.
do we actually have in town?
In farm
Depends on
forest
your
and open
definition.
space is 133.
That's,
That's farm forest and
that
open
has
space.
very little to do with farms.
It's-
I mean, you know what I'm saying, it's nice open land, but it's,
What roughly?
well, you probably mean how many large ones do we have?
Yeah, I mean, you've got
And
Gary.
the 50 acres, we came up with 10.
That was a document that I handed out way back.
We came up with 10 large, 50 acre or larger farms.
Oh, by the way, did you do it with the assessor? Did you get her out?
Yes,
Yeah.
right, so I believe the numbers are correct.
Yeah, it's just that the 54 allows for, these are people who have 50 acres already
Yes.
or more. And so there is the potential for 54 over a 2-year period. Any one of those could become a farm over a 2-year, and then on the 3rd year, because they have now a farm ID, they can put one on.
Or also, if this thing breaks out of the farm only, then we got a real problem.
That's my biggest
I
concern.
think if you applied all of the rules that that we've suggested already, between the shadow flicker and the setbacks that you'd have to have, and the fact that you can't put them in the middle of the swamp, and, you know, if you really get down to it, there's a lot of things that bring those numbers down fast. And we could, in fact, do a study of what it would be if it was everybody with 50 acres or more, and we could probably come back with a you know, pretty close answer to you. And I do not think it's going to be 200 or, you know, wind turbines or something. I think it's still going to be a fairly modest number.
And applying all this criteria.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't give you the answer now, but I just know there's a lot of restrictions.
So I have a question. It's like the Brushy Brook property. The Brushy Brook property, if that was open for wind turbines, because it's not a farm, but it's a very large piece of property that people could buy. And you could put, as you said on your screen, that you could have maybe as many as 3. But let's say someone bought that property and they decided to put 2 in, and then take the rest of the property and put houses in. Because you can put houses right around the wind turbines too. You can choose to do that. And a developer could choose to buy a large piece of property, put 1 or 2 wind turbines on it, and put houses in it. Because you can say, you can get around your flicker, because you showed us where the flicker lines would be. But there's another whole section that's pretty massive. You could easily put houses in there. So you would not only sell a large piece of property for a wind turbine, but it would also have homes, which is what has happened in Rhode Island too. You have homes right by wind turbines. So I think that would be hard to prevent as well.
So,
I think the ordinance is trying to prevent so many things that there doesn't seem to be anything reasonable about it, which is a concern to me.
so if you have a conservation easement on 3 or 5 turbines there, that's 50 acres per turbine.
Yeah.
I
And
believe
you buy a
that you would not be
62
able to count that 50 acres for each one of those wind turbines as towards your build out.
Right, but then if
And
you
it
have,
certainly should be intended that way, it could probably be written in somehow in that
yeah,
way.
because if you buy 200 acres.
So even if they put houses, they put less houses.
Yeah, they do. They would put less houses. Although, again, remember, this is Rhode Island, and we do have houses under wind turbines.
But didn't Brush and Brook start out with the zoning board, planning board, only left and wanted like 200 some houses? And they ended up with 300 and something?
I think there have been 6 different
So that was,
versions
I'm
of
just
that.
saying that somebody, that town, things circumvented. The
Well,
town only wanted X amount by our,
But we won that.
yeah, we did win that
Yeah, we won
afterwards.
that.
in Brushy Brook's case, they could call that
That was
conservation
wild,
area,
though.
that 150 acres conservation area, they could call that, okay, we're gonna leave that alone, we want cluster zoning here. We're gonna use that 150 acres as our leave alone property, and we're gonna cluster a bunch of houses on quarter-acre lots around it.
Not if the land trust.
No, if the land buys it, no, we're all set, we're all set.
But it's not a developer.
But if the developer buys it, that's what they'll do, they'll cluster zoning and call it the open space.
Yes.
I'm just concerned with the number. I mean, it's legality wise, that's my biggest fear. The other things we can work with, to open it up and that,
John, yeah, isn't it possible that, given the existing exemption for solar that farmers have, don't we have the same problem with that? All right, so if I've got a 15
no,
acre
because you
farm,
can
I
still have solar on your house.
but,
Individual people can still put solar in their yard.
but a farmer can put an acre of solar on their property if they have 15 acres of farm. If I have 15 acres of property, I'm not a farm, but why can't I have an acre of solar? I mean, the ordinance was written now.
See, but
so-
you're,
But that's the issue.
No, because you can still have it, you just can't have that acre. You're not being restricted from having it, period, which this ordinance would do. It
Oh,
would
yeah,
restrict, period. You are still entitled.
No, actually, the ordinance allows for small residential ones too. In
What,
this
for what?
ordinance being proposed.
For a windmill?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, but we're
It-
not
it-
going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it is in
Oh,
here
no, I
right
got
now.
one on video
Oh.
right here, there's no way I.
Well, no, I'm just saying
that.
it's currently in the
Yeah,
ordinance.
it's in the ordinance, and that's part of the
Yeah,
ones that I
that's-
would say you just
These
take
big
out.
ones, I don't
You may
think
not
as
have
noisy
house
as that.
mounted.
Right.
shingles.
But we don't know what small is.
I mean, I mean, there are some things in the ordinance that are not picky and they're pretty major, like house mounted windmills, forget it. You know, I don't even want to go there. I don't have problems with big ones.
I only bring that up because the question arises, what about a private owner who has 200 acres, just wants to put a windmill on it?
Right.
Well, what about the existing people that own 15 acres and want to put an acre of ground mounted solar?
Right now,
Currently,
you
that's
change the
limited,
zoning.
currently that's limited to farming, right? So
Or
farms.
a zone change.
So what, I mean, whatever we're using to defend
You can't do an R480.
spots of 1 acre solar around town, we could use the same tactic. I don't know what that tactic is.
My point is, I think I could probably, maybe legal could probably win a case more that you're not restricted from having solar. You're not a farm, that's what it said. We're not restricting you from having solar, you just can't have it net metered or whatever. If you want to do it for your house, you can put all the solar you want. That would cover your roof.
But that's offering me a very different reward, so.
It's still allowing you for that reward.
Well, it's like saying.
Wind,
we want to
you're not
have a
gonna,
windmill versus
you have
solar.
nothing.
But that's, I mean, that's a different, a farmer can have an acre of solar that they make $2,000 a month on, and you're offering me rooftop solar that basically pays my electric bill.
I would still say that you're still entitled to amount, some solar to offset your finances. And you have,
I don't think it is an issue. I mean, we have zoning, you can only do certain things in a commercial. So I don't see that as, from my point of view, I don't see it as a problem. Limiting it to farms, limiting it to 50 acres or whatever, so.
Gary, we're gonna try and wrap this up. You wanna say a few things?
You, Gary.
Since you're the
I love you, Gary, I love you.
That's fine.
No, I like the farm idea, I really do.
Okay, well, the farm's very important. You may not realize how important.
I've thrown a lot of hay in my day, so I know what it is.
And
that
we
I'm
go to
gonna-
farms, so nobody be sad.
That's right, you lived on a farm too.
I'm still doing it. I want to talk about that. I mean, you know,
hey, farmers no food.
many times the last thing a farmer does, the last crop he
Yeah.
plants is houses. That's not our intent.
Yeah.
We want to keep that farm and
Yeah.
keep it going. But we've got serious problems. I don't know, you probably don't realize what's going on in the dairy industry. Right now, there's currently 48,000 dairy farms in the United States. They only need 24,000. 7 dairy farms a day in this country go out of business.
Wow.
Our hope and our desire is to be one of those 24,000 dairy farms that's left. And if we fail, Hopkinton loses. Right? If we fail, what happens when the dairy farm goes out? Look at your housing places. Houses are put there. We
Or they go to
fail.
beef, they go to a different crop. But you're
Even
right.
beef is bad. Even beef is bad.
It's tough.
And the thing is, what do? I mean, we got 250 acres of land. If we fail, what do I do with the 250 acres of land? I got my son saying, I'll think of this thought. We subsidize the tax base of the town of Hopkinton. Right? Cash out. Put houses. Right? We don't want to do that. But you got to think, you know, he said that one day. He says, my family suffers because we subsidize the tax base. So it becomes important that we find something that we can help us for the next 10 years to get through until those 24,000 dairy farms are just left.
That's why we did solar, and you said flat out, we're going to do turbines because you make more money.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
It's the truth.
that's why I'm heading that way. I mean, our plans is to build a new barn, which is probably going to cost pretty close to $1 million. I can't do it without the turbines. I mean, I got government help, I got all of that, but if we do that, we're here. I mean, that's it. Right now, I got a barn that's fallen down. I can very easily, you know, you talk about benefit to Gary. Well, maybe benefit to Gary is sell the place and go to Florida and retire. You know, maybe that's what it is. But we can't, you know, for us to proceed, these are things that we need to do. And it's almost like for the next 10 years, we need a cash cow. And that's what those windmills are, to keep the farm here. Now, you talked about, all right, 250 acres. I figured 250 acres, heck, put 10 windmills down there, right? 2. That's it. On that land. That's what it is. So, you know, I appreciate any help you people can give us.
I think, Gary, as far as I'm concerned, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
We'd like to help you out. At the same time, once there's one up,
Well, I totally understand.
everybody in his uncle are gonna say,
I
hey,
feel
me
I'm
too.
praying you guys can figure this all out.
Yeah.
That's what I'm praying.
Well, here's the story. I had a resident talk to me last summer, and I thought it was very, very funny. They said, you know what we need in this town? We need a stop and shop, maybe a bank, a laundromat. And I says, all right, I says, why did you move to Hopkinton? Well, I like the rural character.
Yeah.
But I want everything
But
else.
I
I
said,
wanted to look like
I
Laura.
remember when I was
Tell you.
small, Granite Street was like that. There were all houses.
And one drive up.
And that's the thing I'm concerned
And
about.
that's when that guy's gonna move out. As soon as all the things come in, yeah.
Well, I'm trying to give you open space. This Thursday, my daughter closes on 20 acres more for the farm.
Oh,
Because that's the other issue too, given half a chance, we'll begin going out buying land to take and increase that 250 acres. This Thursday, she's going to closing on a field in a house, it's 20 acres for the farm. I'm not buying it, my daughter's buying it, but she's basically buying it for the farm.
It's abutting yours, is it?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. So you can see that where we would go if given the chance.
How much money would a turbine make versus solar? Or how much does one turbine? How much,
It's
you know?
big. One turbine is 60,000 a year. Two is 120.
But that's to the farmer.
That's the farmer, that's the
The
farmer.
landowner.
Yeah. Before taxes.
Before taxes. And we'll probably lose it all on the farm, but.
You aren't losing it on the farm, it's your profession, that is what you do.
Right, I know,
So
it keeps
that's
our
what
lifestyle.
You're
Right.
investing
We
in the farm.
discussed long and hard, our family had, about the whole thing. And it's our lifestyle, this is what we do. The farm has been there since 1889, 6 generations on that farm now. It would be hard to walk away. Because our talk has even been to saying, well, you sell out, go buy a farm in Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, go out that way, because we compete. We compete against the factory farms. And they got just about everything on us. They don't have windmills, so that'll be one plus we'll have. But their feed is cheaper, their cows give more milk. They have more of them,
More technology.
more technology. I'm hoping with the windmills to buy into that technology. I'm hoping to put robotic milkers down there, so I wouldn't have to pay labor for people to help us milk. You know, there's a number of things that we can do so we can be more competitive, but it takes having a good cash flow to come in.
Can I ask a question? You mentioned only 2 windmills on your
Right.
property of 250 acres. Why only 2?
Hannah?
So you can't put wind turbines close to each other because they steal wind from each other and create turbulent air. So depending on the main direction of the wind, they either need to be 3 rotor diameters apart or 5 rotor diameters apart. So that's the diameter is the actual sweep of the blades. Because they create turbulent air. So a good example is if you go, a lot of times we drive through Providence on a windy day, 2 of them will be spinning and 1 of them won't. It's because there's wake losses essentially. And so the turbine that's downwind produces the least often. So in order to actually maximize production, you want them to be farther apart from each other.
How far apart?
3, so let's say that the wind is coming from the west, you want them to be 3 rotor diameter. So, sorry, if it's coming from the west, then in the direction of the wind, you would stack them 5 rotor diameters apart from each other. So, in the case of, let's say the one we have, like the ones we have in Coventry, that would be 82 meters times 5 for the meters, and then you multiply by 3.28 to get to the feet. And that's how far apart in the same direction of the wind. Now, if they were going to be perpendicular to the wind, so if you were going to put them north-south, then they would need to be, and the wind is coming from the west, then they would need to be 3 rotor diameters apart. So 82 times 3 times 3.28. I can just get my phone and do the calculation.
1,300.
Yeah, so it's substantial.
I think it's a
Ah.
Yeah.
So I could see where there might be some civil action. If somebody puts up, well, this is life, somebody puts up a turbine on their land and then somebody else wants one, but they can't put it where they want because they're within 1,300 feet of the other one. I don't
Well,
know.
you have to be 1.5 diameters, 1.5 times the height away from your property line. They'd also have to be that far away from their line. That already puts you over 1,200 feet apart. That's just about the distance that we were talking about here. So it's probably not that bad of an impact.
Okay. Any other questions, folks? From the council or the audience?
Is it possible to go to the conservation meeting and take the notes that I have and talk to you about those at the conservation meeting? Because I didn't do all this work for nothing.
I'll do
Oh, no,
whatever I
there's
can
gonna
to
come
keep
a
this thing
point
alive.
We
Oh,
gotta
sorry.
go through this ordinance.
I know that.
And I thought it was, I did think it was tonight too.
Yeah, I thought it was
I
tonight.
I very much would like to address this, if this presentation does in fact, was it being recorded tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so.
So I would like to
Because
be-
we had a discussion with the planning board, it's never had made it up on the web. So because I was wanting to look at that too, to understand the questions and think them through, because this is, you know, some of the questions I heard tonight, I had answers for, but this was not necessarily the time to be answering everything. It was to be listening and getting the questions. But I would very much, I would love it if you'd come to one of our meetings. Sooner we can get the stuff down, we can certainly address a lot of stuff. And
Because there,
it would give it our best shot.
yeah, because I thought we were going to be going through a little more detail to say,
Yeah.
this works, this doesn't, think about this.
I will just say again, the draft ordinance that we did, we basically created a lot of criteria that we thought would limit the number of wind turbines. And then we just quickly wrote some language for it. So we don't have a lot invested in
No, this is
actual
good.
language of the ordinance, we have invested in the background.
So I can be.
Well,
looking
from
about-
they originally, they changed
Second Tuesday?
the reservation.
Second Tuesday month? Second Tuesday month.
We're working off the 5th.
We're working off the fifth draft, correct?
Yes, we are.
No, wait a minute, I don't know what you're looking at there.
That's
So it may not be.
Draft five, draft
We're
five.
looking at the 5th.
Draft five.
It's got all your
This is-
changes in there.
Okay.
I know Rome has all the changes in
I
there.
don't-
It may or may not have been.
This came out in
No, this is 2011.
Yeah, see, this is nice.
This is the,
I thought you put in all your information into the ordinance.
no, we drafted a new ordinance entirely. What we had done was,
But we don't have that, right?
Oh. Wait a minute,
I
I think
believe
we
it-
do.
I believe it
think
was
we
forwarded
do.
to you.
Yes, we do. Because
This
there are
packet right here?
changes in here.
we did, months ago, we did a comparison of that 2011 ordinance
Right.
and,
There's a, I'll give you an example, page 3, where it says, should this be in there? And we have slant, you know, italics here and there.
Yeah.
And when there's
Oh,
italics,
I see.
I mean, we have a straight-through method, but people don't know what the method is, we use italics. And there are italics areas in
the
here.
version I'm working from.
Yeah, I have that, I have that.
I have that.
Well, we have your, we have your synopsis, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that meeting,
But then, just a couple of months ago, we wrote, were they in that one?
Yeah, but
No, that, this one.
Oh,
All right, you just try to put it in.
If you're going to pursue an ordinance, what you need to do is take whatever it is you want in there and you put it in here.
We wrote it.
I know you wrote it on
We
a
started-
two-page memo.
No, we wrote an ordinance that is not that ordinance,
Well, where is it?
right here.
Is that the only copy?
Is that the one?
No, the other folks.
So we're talking about a lot of pages.
Right after this,
Right,
this page here.
yeah, but you didn't, so you didn't do anything to draft number 5.
No,
You need to do draft
the only
number
thing we did
5.
was we read it,
You need to
and
do
made
it.
these suggestions.
and we ended up
You
writing.
need to put the suggestions in, so then, and then, you know, like do italic or underline, and then we can see
What
then
I will
part
say
of
is,
the ordinance.
what I will say is that ordinance is so out of date with its concepts and stuff,
Right, that's,
that it really is better to, my suggestion is to walk away from that one and write a new one that works the way things work today.
Okay, but
I mean, the
then-
turbines are twice as high now as they were in that time
Exactly,
frame.
but there's also things that, I work from this too, so I'm frustrated at that, because I really needed that piece of paper.
Well, we have it.
This was sitting
On
around.
the off-week
Okay,
packet.
this is what I got, not the packet.
No, it was also that.
This
part of this.
is on this staple to this.
Right.
it's right here.
Yes, next page.
Because I didn't realize.
They made suggestions,
That's not that
ordinance,
No.
but they didn't put
That's
the
it.
ordinance.
Those are
Some
all
things
the
they'd like to
changes.
do.
This thing right here, they talk about right here.
Yeah.
That's somebody's holding his hand.
Restrictions, so it's.
That's the left, that's the left.
That's a letter, that's not his ordinance.
don't have that.
I don't know why this didn't end up in your
I don't
hands.
have that.
We don't
Well,
have it.
no, I have it, I have what you're talking about.
Okay.
I mean, I think I do.
No,
Wait,
No,
yes,
you don't, you have a
So
letter.
you have a letter.
He
Right,
has.
I have the letter.
He's
No,
got something.
He's got a whole,
Oh, I don't know what he's got.
no, we don't, Jesus.
Boy, it's all bad film too.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
anyway.
this is, we don't have it.
So this is from back last summer.
No, wait,
Yeah,
oh,
November.
wait.
That's the date in November,
Now,
isn't
let me
it?
see, what's the date on
This
this?
is June.
June, I guess something's the date.
So that's the cover letter. So let's see.
Yeah, November.
So we added some more things for the purpose. Oh, this was the farm viability ordinance. So when you told us to take it out of the farm viability ordinance, then we made it as a freestanding ordinance, newly written, not trying to work with the old 2011 version that had just so much stuff in there that's just totally out of date.
Do we have that question?
I circulated this to,
I don't think we
will
can.
confirm it. I I certainly intended that you had this, I'll tell you that. I think I would have done a lot better tonight if you
So maybe, at least if you give it to us on that.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get it.
Yeah, and it's not a long thing, yeah. But it has all those things we talked about, the 50 acres,
Yeah.
the two, the 1.5 and 2 times setbacks, and there aren't any of that stuff.
Let me just take a quick look.
Oh, you can have it.
Oh, not frustrated, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Oh.
All right. Yeah.
It is amazing how you go through something like this.
Well, that's the end of that meeting.
I appreciate your kindness as
Yeah,
it
get back
got
to
me
Lisa,
out
so
of
we
here.
can get that.
That's back.
Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
When I hand you that, it's for Lisa, for,
Oh.
send it to everybody. Here's the front page. So what happens? Good question.
Well, it's,
They'll have to, they're gonna, if they have an ordinance, they'll circulate it to us, the new ordinance.
So you're gonna have.
oh, well, we'll shut this.
Gary, it was up to me that he wanted to stop. That's it. That's it. I'm sure that. They just want to make money. That's it. What? They want to make money. But in your case, their case, they just want to, they want to take it crypto Bahamas or whatever.
Well, there's also all the other.
Oh, yeah. It is. But you know what? I don't want to be a NIMBY. Everybody knows what a NIMBY is, right? But, the people in Gloucester who may have an ordinance against these things, say, no, I'm going to put lots of stuff, it'll benefit my climate though. No, yeah, okay, maybe we want to say to the city, okay, Gary, put yours up and that'll be the end of it. Why not people to benefit? Electrical benefits, power benefits, or strictly a hockey team, that'd be another thing. Now, if we ever do buy Russian book, if we ever do put 3 up there, which is going to be a problem, like,
Yeah, all right,
but we put 3 up there,
Remember the
if that power comes back, lowers our taxes as well as lowers electric bills, which is obvious, I'm all for that case. But as soon as you do that, then everybody else is going to want to put it up there. That's another thing, oh yeah, you got it.
They have to chip the power down to the actual substation, for 12 lines.
But the,
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of that.
But they did put it in there.
Well,
And they did it underground. Well, I know, that is,